Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Welcome to another episode of Front Page. I'm your host, Scott Cameron Goulet. China is experiencing its coldest winter in decades. To ensure winter heating and to cope with power shortages, China's coal mines are working overtime to produce more coal than ever before, yet Beijing just signed a climate agreement with Washington agreeing to decarbonize. What's the CCP's real motive? YouTube announced that it will hide dislike counts on videos in order to protect smaller users and new channels, but we're not really given details about the real reason behind it. There is also some good news today. The biggest is that New Jersey Democratic Senate President finally conceded and stopped claiming how many votes they found. The Biden administration has been sneaking in planes to transport illegal immigrants from the southern border to everywhere in the U.S., but Florida's governor has come up with a brilliant way to deal with the White House. Okay, let's get into it. In a surprise move at the UN Climate Summit COP26, the United States and China signed a non-legally binding pact pledging to strengthen action on climate change over the next decade. In the joint agreement, the two sides agreed to cooperate on a range of issues including methane emissions, the transition of clean energy, and decarbonization. Experts told the New York Times that the provisions of the new pledge fall short of the USChina climate agreement in 2014. The previous agreement set up emission reduction targets, but the current agreement does not. A U.S.-led coalition last week pledged to reduce methane emissions, but China did not join that coalition. So what is the reason behind the sudden U.S.-China cooperation on climate change? In the new agreement, few specific action goals were clearly set. Neither the U.S. nor China included commitments on coal power or electric vehicles. China did not sign on to plans to end overseas fossil fuel financing, to reduce methane emissions, or to make agriculture more sustainable, let alone include proposals for clean power or green transportation. This so-called global warming is just a grand topic to be exploited for repairing U.S.-China relations. Addressing decarbonization and global emissions reductions requires the actual cooperation of the CCP. Foreign Policy published an article pointing out that the COP26 summit was silent on human rights in China. Environmental activists are afraid to mention Tibet, Xinjiang, or Hong Kong on their websites or social media for fear of angering Beijing. The Alibaba-owned Hong Kong newspaper, the South China Morning Post, released an article on Thursday titled, "The U.S.-China Rivalry Threatens to Undermine Further Action on Fighting Climate Change." The article stated that climate policy experts are concerned that continued tensions between the U.S. and China are limiting the space for further agreements. This was interpreted as a sign that the CCP wants the U.S. to soften further. Sources say that Biden and Xi will hold a video conference next Monday. This will be the third call between the two men this year and is expected to be longer than the last two. Could this climate pact be a lollipop handed over in advance by Beijing in hopes that the U.S. will reciprocate with great rewards during the virtual meeting? The CCP has been calling on the nation to go all out to produce coal, not decarbonize it. China has entered the cold season more than 20 days early this year. Of course, the celebrities meeting in Scotland won't feel the cold snap. The Inner Mongolian region has seen extraordinarily heavy snowfall in recent days. Some cities experienced the heaviest snowfall ever recorded. In the neighboring province of Liaoning, in addition to heavy snowfall, low temperatures caused 6.4 million livestock to freeze to death. Residents were skiing instead of walking to get around. Radio Free Asia reports that in response to power shortages this year, Beijing has pushed for increased production of coal, allowing 153 coal mines to increase production capacity by 220 million tons per year. Compared with last year, coal capacity has increased by 5.7%, a new annual high of 11.5 million tons of coal production per day was reached recently. So, how sincere is the CCP in signing the joint climate statement with the U.S.? At COP26, a different voice emerged, and that was Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison. The United States seeks to reduce global methane emissions by 30% by the year 2030. Australia has rejected this U.S. and European-backed target, fearing it would affect its agriculture, energy, and mining industries. Prior to attending COP26, Morrison was criticized by the mainstream media for not recognizing the urgency of climate change and for not being a major player on this issue. They suggested that Australia should reduce 75% of emissions by the year 2030. Morrison was unconvinced by these criticisms, and in a speech to the Victorian Chamber of Commerce on November 10th, he said Australia must stay on its own unique path.
Australians do not have to upturn their lifestyles or our economy to reach net zero. We can make our own Australian way. Under our plan, Australia will continue producing and exporting world-class resources, energy, manufactured goods, agricultural products, led by globally competitive businesses.
Morrison also called for a shift away from politically driven climate change goals and timetables to market economy-led solutions.
But we believe climate change will ultimately be solved by can-do capitalism, not don't-do governments seeking to control people's lives and tell them what to do with interventionist regulation and taxes that just forced up your cost of living and forced businesses to close.
He stressed that the challenge for Australia now is to ensure an economic recovery for all Australians. Economies must not be compromised to achieve net zero carbon emissions.
Energy prices down with affordable and reliable power, and also being accountable for our progress. Australia reports every quarter, every gas, every sector, every emission. The rest of the world has to catch up to that sort of transparency. Together, all of these are designed to ensure that Australia can shift to a net zero economy in a way that does not put industries, jobs, or our regions at risk.
The Morrison administration's strict and extreme COVID control measures have drawn criticism from the public. On this point, he defended himself by saying that these policies were a matter of necessity, but he pledged to return the freedom to the people and not lock down again.
And I think Australians, after almost 2 years of governments telling them what to do through this pandemic, they've had just about enough of that approach. That approach does not come easy to us as Liberals and Nationals. It just doesn't. Every fibre of our being, in many of the decisions we've had to take.
Not only do Western countries depend on the CCP to reach the climate change target, Americans and allies are also too dependent on Chinese technology. According to Bloomberg News, point-of-sale devices manufactured by Pact Global were transmitting encrypted data to unknown third parties in China. On October 26, the FBI raided Pact's offices in Jacksonville, Florida. A British security agency is also investigating the Chinese credit card machine manufacturer. Cybersecurity expert Brian Krebs reported that the Pact systems could be linked to cyber attacks, hacks, and illicit data collection on U.S. and European Union organizations. Pact's global headquarters are split between Hong Kong and Shenzhen, China. Pact has manufactured 57 million terminals that operate in 120 countries around the world. The Chinese manufactured credit card machines are just the tip of the iceberg of vulnerability to China tech. Other Chinese-linked companies like Zoom, TikTok, and computer and cell phone manufacturers have hundreds of millions of global users who are vulnerable to data loss to China. 90% of computers and 70% of cell phones are manufactured in China. The CCP's aggressiveness makes it clear that all of this hardware includes a serious threat to personal privacy and national security. We tend to ignore these apparent perils for reasons of convenience and budget, but we do so at our own grave risk. YouTube announced on Wednesday that it will hide dislike counts on all its videos, claiming it wants to curb creator harassment. YouTube started this test earlier this year, and it will now implement it in full. In the screenshot of the new interface on the YouTube blog, the like button and its click count will remain visible. The dislike button will still be visible, but won't show a count. YouTube stated that this approach was taken to protect niche creators and those who are just starting out from unfair treatment by malicious acts. YouTube stated, "Our experiment confirmed that this does occur at a higher proportion on smaller channels. Video uploaders will still be able to find their exact dislike count in the YouTube backend, along with other metrics. However, niche creators are not necessarily affected by the large number of dislikes on videos. In 2018, YouTube uploaded a video called YouTube Rewind, which became the most unpopular video on the platform. The video had 221 million views with 19 million dislikes. Some commentators on Twitter believe that YouTube decided to remove the dislike count because videos posted by the Biden administration had more dislikes than likes. As previously reported by the Epoch Times in April 2021, YouTube removed about 2.5 million dislikes from videos posted by the White House. According to data on 81m.org in April, the White House channel posted more than 300 videos and received about 3.7 million dislikes. YouTube removed an average of 8,000 dislikes for each video. I don't think that we have that problem for our channel. I want to take a moment to thank you all for your support of Front Page. Every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, please double check to make sure that you are still subscribed. We have heard from many viewers that they don't get notifications of our videos anymore, so follow us on Telegram, Gab, Parler, and Getter for the latest updates. One of the most powerful elected officials in New Jersey, Steve Sweeney, finally conceded to truck driver Edward Durr on Wednesday, admitting that there was a red wave. The election results show that Durr won 52% of the vote to Sweeney's 48%. Sweeney refused to concede for more than a week, claiming 12,000 ballots were found in one county. Sweeney issued a statement on Wednesday that he accepts the results and will not request a recount of the ballots. He said during a speech at the State House complex, "I, of course, accept the results. I want to congratulate Mr. Durr and wish him the best of luck." Sweeney also explained that he would not quit politics, but did not mention whether he would continue his candidacy or run for governor. That was his goal before his defeat. On Thursday, Durr said on Tucker Carlson that Sweeney was a gentleman in his congratulatory call.
"Well, if he ever needed anything, just give me a call, because I'm his representative now."
That's so great.
The FBI used Ashley Biden's diary as an excuse to raid James O'Keefe's home on November 6. A federal judge on Thursday ordered the Department of Justice to stop extracting data from O'Keefe's confiscated phone. O'Keefe's lawyer, Harmeet Dillon, posted a copy of the court order on Twitter. The Southern District of New York judge, Annalisa Torres, made the order and responded to O'Keefe's request for a hearing. We'll keep you posted on Project Veritas' fight for press freedom. On November 10th, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis threatened to send illegal immigrants to Biden's home state of Delaware if the administration keeps sending them to the Sunshine State. DeSantis' office alleged that about 70 flights of illegal aliens were sent to Jacksonville, Florida. The governor ensured, "We're going to get together and figure out what we can do in the immediate term to protect folks in Florida." He said that his options are limited because the federal government controls the immigration policies and actions, but if they're going to come here, we'll provide buses, DeSantis said, and I will send them to Delaware. That's a very good idea. The Calaveras Unified School District Board of Education in Northern California passed a unanimous decision on Tuesday to not comply with the state's COVID-19 vaccine mandate for K-12 schools. The board will further discuss and potentially make a decision on mask mandates and testing protocols at its next meeting. The district has previously stated that they are aware of the possible outcomes, including the loss of funding and possibly other formal actions that can be taken against the district, but the school board feels strong in their position on this topic, despite mask mandates and other preventative measures that the Newsom administration put in place. California's COVID-19 infection rate has recently started ticking up compared to the new low level in Florida, where there are no state-issued mask or vaccination mandates. German officials confirmed that daily COVID-19 cases have surpassed 50,000 for the first time. A number of states have implemented the so-called G2 rule since September. The rule allows businesses like restaurants and bars to exclude individuals who are not vaccinated, but since October, the number of infections and deaths in Germany has skyrocketed. The political parties who are striving to form Germany's next coalition government presented a draft legislation for pandemic prevention despite not being in power yet. According to the proposal, after the end of the state of emergency, which is November 25th, the government will not introduce nationwide measures, such as closing schools and stores and banning activities on a large scale, but it will form a legal framework for each state government to decide which measures to take based on local conditions. According to the WHO, COVID-19 cases have significantly increased across Europe in recent days despite their vaccine passport policies. Bulgaria reported 334 COVID-19 deaths on Tuesday, the highest daily toll since the pandemic started. It implemented strict control measures last month. A green pass is required to enter restaurants, gyms, and other locations. Slovakia reported that the daily increase of new COVID-19 infections hit a record on Tuesday with over 7,000 cases. In the nearby Czech Republic, COVID infections have jumped to levels close to record numbers earlier this year. Austria's daily infection also hit a record high of about 11,000 on Wednesday. Ukraine's health ministry on Thursday reported over 27,000 new infections, about 500 more than the previous high that was tallied last week. Czech Prime Minister Andrej Babiš announced his resignation and the dissolution of his cabinet on November 11th. He has sent a letter of resignation to President Miloš Zeman, who is hospitalized. Babiš is a former member of the Czechoslovak Communist Party. He is currently the second richest man in the Czech Republic with about $4 billion in assets. Petr Fiala, the leader of the Civic Democratic Party, is expected to take over as prime minister. He will form a center-right coalition government. Fiala is a former professor of political science at Charles University in Prague. He became the leader of the right-wing Civic Democratic Party in 2014. The new government will include several pro-Taiwanese figures. Think tank experts expect the new government to be tougher on China and may even agree to formally rename the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office in the Czech Republic as the Taiwan Representative Office. Okay, this is our show for today. If you want more Front Page, please join us on our membership site for in-depth reports and sensitive news that you cannot see on YouTube. And if you like what you heard, please don't forget to like and subscribe this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth. Again, thank you for watching Front Page, and we will see you next time.